What's up, guys? It's the Rhino Live Show. I'm going to try to do this again every day. Try to do about 20 minutes every day. I think I got a different perspective on things than a lot of people. I can kind of separate myself from being a fan and say what I believe is true. Sam Ferguson played baseball at Camden High School and USC Sumter. Has started a YouTube vlog, podcast type deal. Me and him were talking, and he said something like, I inspired him to do this, maybe. And but honestly, I think it's the opposite. He's kind of re-inspired me to get back into the podcast and sports game. We don't have a sports show. You know, it's been over a year now. We didn't have a sports show at Gadgets on Monday nights to talk about sports, and I really missed it. I didn't really know where to go to get back into that. So I think this may be the medium. YouTube, maybe put it on like Spotify or something like that, but probably mostly YouTube. And I'm just going to talk about sports and what's going on in the area. The first topic, I'll go ahead and jump into it. It's USC basketball. Frank Martin comes out today and says something to the effect of he plans to stay here. He hopes to stay here. If it's up to him, he'll be here. And there's a lot of people on both sides of this fence that can't really figure out who to blame or what's the problem. And you know, some of it's COVID and some of it's coaching and some of it's players. But to me, I mean, it all comes back to Frank Martin. You see, in 2017, there were 4 teams in the Final Four. It was Gonzaga, Baylor, North Carolina, and South Carolina. Well, Gonzaga beat South Carolina and goes on to the final to lose to North Carolina, who beat Baylor. Well, 4 years ago, that was those teams. So where are they now? So Gonzaga's number 1 in the country, and Baylor's number 2. And although North Carolina struggled, they're probably going to make the tournament. And the Gamecocks are 6-14. Does that make any sense to you? Gonzaga's still here. Baylor's still here. North Carolina's here, but they're way above South Carolina. So you've had 4 years, and you really didn't parlay that into anything. And I know that it hit the timing just right with Sindarius and PJ Dozier and Kotsar and Silva and Dwayne Notice. I know it was like a perfect storm that hit it at the right time, but you didn't turn that into anything. Like, you didn't go forward with recruiting. You haven't really got anybody great to come in to replace those guys. You got a bunch of guys who are hit and miss. You got guys that can score 22 tonight, might score 6 the next night. You don't have any bigs, and you can say what you want, but none of these guys that play down in the post are any good. You recruited guys who are 3 stars, and you can't win in the SEC with that. I mean, you recruited against guys who had offers from South Carolina State and Western Carolina. You've got a 6'7" white guy on your squad that started a couple games that didn't make all-region his senior year in high school. He averaged 9 points a game. Was second team all-region. That's who you got to go against the Alabamas and the Floridas. I mean, I just don't see where you got 12 spots, and you've got not really great talent there. You know, you got 2 big guys you play. One's playing a lot more lately that aren't SEC big guys. You know, you have guys who are hit and miss. One night, one of your guards is on, and the next 2 nights, he's not. And I think that's a product of Frank. I don't think he can recruit elite talent. I don't think elite talent wants to come here for a couple of different reasons. There's no tradition at South Carolina, so there's no reason to really come here. And secondly, nobody wants to play for Frank Martin. I don't think anybody wants to get yelled at, you know, throughout the game. I mean, Gamecocks will be up 25, and if you foul a guy, he's going to light into you. And I understand there's tough love and coaching, but sometimes you got to ease it up just a hair and realize that, you know, you can pat a guy on the back. If you watch Frank Coach K, how he's evolved over the last 5 years. There's a lot more high fives, handshakes, pat on the butts than there is slamming chairs and throwing clipboards. And, you know, you can say what you want about a soft society, and maybe that is, but the majority of these kids are those kids you're recruiting. And you're not going to get it by cussing and screaming and hollering and throwing things. You're just not. So I know Frank Martin will probably stick around another year because South Carolina doesn't move on from mediocrity very quickly. They allow it to kind of fester until we've had enough. And then we'll go forward. And I realize, you know, media in South Carolina has to kind of hold their tongue to a certain degree because you can't really call out the coach and then turn around and ask him for an interview. You know, I understand that. I mean, you don't want to be called out in a press conference. Nobody wants the Ron Morris treatment where you ask a tough question and next thing you know, you're banned from the facility. You get that. I understand that. But at some point, you got to stop being the friend and call a spade a spade. You're 4-12 in the SEC, regardless of the situation. Vanderbilt, coming up into this year, had won 4 SEC games in 2 years. And 2 of those 4 was against South Carolina. That's not good. That's not good. Frank Martin says we're known as a winning program. No, you're not. Not known as a winning program at all. Matter of fact, since the Final Four, you're below 500. You've lost a lot of games to teams you shouldn't have. I just don't think Frank Martin can get the players in here. And you would say to me, you say, well, who are you going to get to replace him? No idea. For the longest time, I thought Greg Marshall was the answer. Until recently, when the antics come out that, you know, the verbal abuse and maybe the physical abuse among players, he's definitely out. So scratch him. But one guy I think that may be that guy who could conceivably take his place and take South Carolina higher is Michael Boynton. He played at South Carolina, came from New York down, played point guard, graduated from University of South Carolina, was on the staff at University of South Carolina. Went on to Oklahoma State. Has been doing some good things. Got a ranked basketball team, a really good basketball team. So for me, he's making like $1.01 million, $1,100,000. I think South Carolina's got that in the bank. I don't see why South Carolina couldn't offer him a couple $100,000 more to come home if he wants to. I don't know, but if he wants to come back home, I think it'd be a great thing to have him. Outside of that, I have no idea. I have no answers. I don't make those decisions, and it wouldn't matter if I did. You know, it wouldn't matter if I had any pool. I don't think, you know, they listen to Ryan, who's got a YouTube channel. So anyway, South Carolina's in bad shape. It's embarrassing. The one thing about South Carolina athletics is if you are good, people will come watch you. That's a proven fact by women's basketball. I grew up, my mama liked to go when Nancy Wilson was the head coach. You know, most of these people who are all women's basketball don't know who Nancy Wilson is, or Martha Parker or Shannon Johnson. You know, those were the ladies who built the program before Dawn Staley got here. And now, you know, everybody is on the bandwagon when your team, you know, wins a national championship and stuff like that. So people will come. You're selling out women's basketball. You can definitely sell out men's basketball if you're putting on a good product. I mean, proof's in the pudding. In 2017, Greenville was full of Gamecock fans. New York had Gamecock fans. Phoenix had, Arizona had Gamecock fans through that basketball tournament. So if you win, they'll come. You just got to do better. All right, so that gets us into South Carolina baseball. Undefeated. A lot of hype. A lot of Ray Tanner, Mark Kingston comparisons going on right now, which I think that's a little much. But a lot of hype. Wes Clark, player of the week the first 2 weeks of the year. Andrew Eister, big hits against Clemson. Walk-off wins in 2 of those games. The third will be played in a month or so. But hitting the ball really well, scoring some runs, but the pitching staff's been phenomenal. Thomas Farr, you got the Jordan kid, the Bosnick kid. That starting rotation is really good. I like that Bosnick kid. I don't think he's given up a run in 16 innings. He pitched out of the bullpen against Clemson. Throws hard. If not for a blister on his throwing hand that first game, who knows? I think he had the first 9 outs. 8 of them were strikeouts. So kid's good. So, and the bullpen's good. Sanders, Jack Mahoney, of course, Brent Carey. You got all those guys that come in and can get outs when you need to. The problem I have with a Kingston team versus a Tanner team, and people are overlooking, I've had this discussion on Twitter with people who think they know Gamecock baseball. Ray Tanner, they did hit a lot of home runs. Christian Walker's and hell, Ron Peters back when they lost to Texas. We always had guys in the lineup that could hit. Trip Kelly from Florence, he had 20-plus home runs in a season. Even Big Trey Dyson from Spring Valley, he hit a home run here or there. But that's not how they won baseball games, and that's not what Ray Tanner built. If you look back in the late 90s, early 2000s, Mike Curry led the nation in stolen bases, set the South Carolina record with 60. He could run. He get on base. He changed the game. Then you bring in Brian Roberts from North Carolina, played in the league for a decade. You get Brian Roberts in there. He stole 61 bases. And then you come back and you get another Major League Baseball type shortstop, and Drew Meyer. He comes up. He's stealing 30, 40 bags. And all through that lineup was manufacturing runs in spite of a big home run. Where most teams try to get on and hit a big home run, South Carolina tried to produce manufactured run, hit and run, steal a base, put the pressure on the defense. That's what they did. And even those years that they went to Omaha and won back-to-back championships, they had more stolen bases than they had home runs. They had the guys like Whit Merrifield, Evan Marzilli, Jackie Bradley, even Wingo, that could not only handle the bat, but they could run. They could hit and run. They could straight steal. They were good base runners. They were smart to go from first to third on a single, where a lot of teams maybe end up stealing a force play situation. So that's what they're missing. They're missing team speed. In those 2 World Series wins, they won 7 games by 1 run. That's manufacturing runs. That's winning 4-3, 3-2, 2-1. Sometimes you can't depend on an Eister to get that base hit or Wes Clark to hit a 3-run homer. You got to figure out how to get the bat on the ball and get the runners, advanced. And I'm not sure they can do that. The bottom of the lineup is kind of weak. Khalil is a really good glove, but he's a hole. We've had guys who weren't as good offensively, but were clutch. I don't think that George Khalil is all that clutch with the bat, and he doesn't bunt well. So that's a hole. Shortstops, man, you're talking about Adam Everett, Drew Meyer, Reese Havens. You're talking about major league quality guys. Adam Everett stayed in the league a decade, had a better fielding percentage than Derek Jeter. You're talking about guys who can not only handle the bat, but handle the glove. And this ain't the 80s anymore. You just can't make it because you got a good glove. So team speed is something I worry about. Even Tanner, at the end of the career, he had Tanner English, was one of the fastest guys we ever had. He just didn't get on base enough. So if you know anything about baseball, you know that leadoff man gets on and he changes the whole dynamic of the game, makes the pitcher go from a wind-up to a stretch. He slides step and he's trying to change his motion to get the ball to the plate quicker, takes off some velocity, hangs one, bang. You change everything. And if he steals second, a walk or a single turns into a runner in scoring position. That's what South Carolina needs. South Carolina needs a dedicated guy who can get on base and get to second base. That way all these gaps are runs. These gap hits are runs. Even the singles are runs with a really fast runner. So that's the only difference I see. I really like the team. The depth's good. Got a lot of good pitching. We're going to find out, though. You go to number 19 Texas this weekend for a series. That's cool. That's interesting. I like to see that. You come back and you play Vanderbilt. And there's 5 SEC teams in like the top 6 or whatever, and Carolina plays them all. So you're really going to be tested to be able to score runs, to be able to pitch in the clutch, to have depth, to manufacture a run, to squeak out a close game. I'm interested to see how they do that. So far, so good. But it's only going to get tougher from here out. So we'll see. And lastly, I'm going to close with this. I got a bunch of stuff, and I'll just save it for another day and just keep. I'm going to do like 3 topics a day, do like 20 minutes, not hold up people too much. Les Miles. Les Miles has been let go by Kansas, which was a terrible fit to start with. A terrible program from a guy who had a pretty good resume as a head coach. Didn't ever make much sense to me to go to Kansas, and it struggled. But now allegations come out back in LSU that there was some inappropriate involvement with a female co-ed or whatever, and it's led to him being fired. And Les Miles doesn't look like that guy to me. You know, he just was like a regular old businessman or whatever you say. I never looked at Les Miles and think he was creepy. But I'll be honest with you, if you think Les Miles is doing something on the down low, I can't imagine what Lane Kiffin is doing. I'd imagine his Snapchat's probably as filthy as an OnlyFans page. In Oxford, Mississippi at the Grove, I'm sure he's had some inappropriate conversation with blonde co-eds and the like. So it's tough, man. You know, with technology these days, with audio and video and text and Snapchats and all these different apps people are using, you're seeing guys who do stuff in the privacy, what they think is the privacy of their own office or home, phone line, turns into public knowledge, and they pay the price. I just saw a clip about the recruiting of Kirby Smart from the Valdosta State coach, and how he claims that they're paying, depending on who you are, they're paying you not to go to the NFL. Saying Nick Chubb made 6 figures to stay at Georgia for another year. You know, those are some strong allegations, but a lot of times where there's smoke, there's fire, and even if there's not, it's gonna lead to an investigation. It's never good for your program. So, you know, all this sliding money on the backhanded handshakes and all that kind of stuff's coming to light, and people are paying the price. So, never thought Les Miles would be that guy. I thought Les Miles was kind of straight and narrow. The old dad, and it looks like the dude from Coach, you know, just does his job and smiles. I mean, I know he eats grass and kind of weird stuff like that, but I didn't think he was a sexual harasser, but I guess you never know. But thanks for watching. Tell me what you think on Frank Martin. Give me your 2 cents on Frank Martin. Give me your 2 cents on the baseball team. What do you think the future is for both? Tomorrow I'm going to jump into South Carolina football, what I think about Shane Beamer, what he's done with his coaching staff, the future of South Carolina football going forward. And then I'm going to talk about some golf as well. Tiger Woods, Bryson DeChambeau, the youth movement that's on the tour right now. That's really good for golf. And, you know, the future of Tiger Woods, future of golf, future of the Masters, and stuff that's coming up here soon. What's my take going forward? So, you know, if you got something to say, or you got a question or a comment or a subject you want me to cover, just leave a comment. Appreciate you watching. See y'all tomorrow.